The Minister of Aviation, alongside a team of officials from the ministry, appear before the National Assembly Joint Committee on Aviation for the 2024 Performance Appraisal and 2025 Budget Defense Session.
In your own opinion,
the Abuja second runway project embroiled in controversies and delays since former President Obasanjo's administration is again revived.
We've been talking about second runway since when we came into the 9th Senate. That issue has been there.
This is one of the larger issues in Nigeria of not executing such projects on time. I think the 9th Assembly, there was a small provision and there was an actual release. The total sum, just to make it open, at that time was 90 billion. Lo and behold, as I speak with you now, the contractors have left the site. The variation from 90 billion, they are proposing 532 billion. I will not accept it. The option I have is to cancel the contract. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't want to say, but the option I have now is that we have to invite fresh bids because they cannot hold us to ransom.
The questions persisted as other lawmakers highlighted additional critical areas.
I don't see why we need an aerospace university. Abuja University is there, backing from there. We could have an aerospace and aviation department there.
I think it's just a matter of perspective as to whether we can be in complete control as an aviation ministry to develop the courses we think will develop the aviation ecosystem in Nigeria.
Separately, the nation's growing debt profile is a nodal point as the Director General appears before a joint committee on foreign and local debts.
What is the total debt of the country?
As at September 30th, the debt stock in Naira terms was 142 trillion Naira. So that includes the federal government, the 36 states, and the federal capital territory. But I also like to add that when you put all the 36 states and the federal capital territory together, they account for only about 10% of that figure. So it means we should be looking at each other here and know that we own most of Nigeria's public debt.
In the meantime, the Senate Committee on Appropriations have begun the critical task of receiving and compiling reports of the various committees. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Business sector, there are always outlooks to be done for the year 2025. And for those who have done outlooks for us so far this year, they've been full of optimism. They believe that the worst is behind us in terms of all of the increments that we have seen and the spiraling inflation which we have witnessed. They think that this year we might begin to see inflation taper down. It's unclear just how much effect the new increase in tariff for telecom companies, especially for telecom services, will have on inflation. We'll wait to see just what that will be. But most people generally say, oh, well, it does look like this will be the year of recovery. What we haven't really taken into cognizance is our debt profile. And if what let's say Madam DMO, Madam Patience Oniha, said yesterday at the budget defense session, which is still going on at the National Assembly, is anything to go by. It is very clear that we need to pay some attention to our growing debt profile. And that's what we intend to do on this program this morning. Joining us to take a look at that is Mr. Peter Ame, who is the National Secretary, Coalition of United Political Parties. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily, and Happy New Year to you. It's still January, so that's still very much in order.
Good morning.
Yes, but is it really going to be a Happy New Year? Are you very optimistic that this year will be happy indeed for Nigerians?
For me, when I look at the budget, I have to take my, put into proper perspective and take it from a context which I want to drive this point this morning. You look there, for me, I see the budget as misaligned, allocation of resources and is the recipe for underdevelopment and debt servicing. When you have a budget of 49 trillion naira, you're going to be using 16 trillion, over 16 trillion to service for debt servicing, which is about 32% of the budget. 14 trillion for recurrent expenditure, and then you have 13 trillion for capital expenditure. Then you also have a problem because the Minister of Finance was at the National Assembly and said that the capital expenditure for the 2024 budget was underperformed so badly that it was within 25% performance.
That is 2024.
2024.
Yeah.
So when you now look at 2025 to now, that is about 13 trillion for capital expenditure. Are we expecting them to be able to do better when we have about 16 trillion naira to be used for debt servicing? That covers about 32%. And the problem we have with our debt servicing is just like what the Minister of Aviation has said. When you have a budget within a short period of time and they tell you that variation is from 90 billion to 500 something billion naira. This budget procurement process that is not transparent, just like the EFCC has said, that constitutes the major part of our corruption when it comes to our budget process and implementation process. We need to be able to have a system that is transparent like it used to be. Like people can freely bid. Nigerians will know the worth of the bidding and then be able to manage the process. I don't think this budget can take us out of the woods, because if it's not properly managed and if our debt burden remains so huge and we take money, because if we are getting money and we're getting loans from all the world or maybe local their investment, it has to be directed properly to investment that will regenerate, that will help the Nigerian populace to be able to have better life, not investment that continue with repeated line items in the budget when presidency and government agencies buy cars year in year out and they buy kitchen utensils year in year out, and this repeated items is adding so much burden to our budget process. We need to have a budget process that will have a direct impact on the life of the people.
Is it so much so that we haven't really paid attention to the budget, or that we still haven't fully absorbed the impact, the ramifications of what we saw, the floating of the naira, let's say of the dollar now, and then also the increments we have seen in subsidy removal, and a number of other, even for electricity, subsidy was also taken away. So is it that we haven't really taken, because I'm looking at a statement here from Nigeria's debt management office, and they are saying that part of the reason why our debt profile seems to be looking so humongous now is basically because of the devaluation of the naira. And they have even taken a very modest figure, to translate debts that are denominated in USD to naira. They're using, I think, the base figure, the rate they're using is 1,330 naira, which is far from what the current exchange rate is currently saying.
You see, what government agencies are doing, I saw a video by the tax review reform committee or something, who was also pushing the same narrative that it was the devaluation of the naira that led to the current inflation and current financial crisis that Nigeria has today. It's not true.
But isn't that really the situation?
No, it's not the situation. When the president came on board, there's a process you have to evaluate the kind of policies you want to implement. You have to look at the overall impact it will have on the economy and the people and on the workplace. See, when the president came on board without structural plan, without any plan to be able to have a foundation for the removal of fuel subsidy, and impromptly, irrationally, without any committee to cushion the effect of the removal, he removed the fuel subsidy. You can bear me witness that the price of PMS per liter increased that same day, and the cost of transportation from Nyanya to Central area increased by over 300%. So when you have that cost of transportation being increased, one thing that transportation does is that it carries goods and services, and for that it increased the burden to the common man. You can't have a person who you say is earning 70,000 as minimum wage today. We have workers that comes to work and say that he will survive based on that something, because the government is not looking at the cost of transportation. If the government had taken the approach of 2012, like providing buses for each of the state, maybe 100 buses, to be able to cushion the effect of whatever policy that will come with this subsidy removal, won't be in this mess so deep That's the truth. The truth is that transportation cost that was not mitigated, that was not even, nothing was done to assist the general masses on how this fuel subsidy removal will have direct impact on the economy was a major fall for us. There's nobody can give you another alternative definition, because what government want to do is to try to create a narrative that help to be able to put them in good light. You can't have, when the government came into about 20 months ago, 20 or 21 months ago, we had the debt of 37 trillion or so. Today our debt has jumped to 142 trillion naira. What can the Nigerians say on the street today that this investment was used to better the lives of our people? What have we done? Look, people are trying to look.
So let me get you correctly here. What you're saying is that you don't think that this has anything to do with devaluation of the naira. You think it has more to do with fuel subsidy removal.
I think
is that correct?
Yes, more.
But some people will say, but you're saying the same thing. Yeah, fuel subsidy was taken away. We saw the immediate impact of that. Increased prices and costs of transportation, which of course has
eventually devalued
which also had an impact on the cost of fuel and goods and services, more or less. And then you now saw a devaluation of the naira for a country that relies mainly on imports, imported goods. A lot of the things which we eat, well, I don't want to say eat now.
we use in this country.
A lot of things we use in the country are imported, and if the dollar has been devalued, the naira has been devalued against the dollar, the effect was not something that was going to be something we saw overnight.
I'm not saying that there was no effect at all, but what I'm saying is that for the government to try to now start to drive a narrative that is solely for that purpose that we're in this current situation.
No. So I don't think that is solely. They have said that it is solely.
The emphasis. They have not talked about. What I'm talking about to talk about
is that the debt profile of the country was said to have shot up as a result of this devaluation of the naira, because when you exchange the debt valued in dollars to naira using the new exchange rate, you certainly will see an increase.
I agree with that point, but I'm trying to make generally the cost of our economic woes. Yes, I agree with that point. And the data they are showing that it has about 1,300 and something.
Yes, 1,330 naira is the exchange rate.
It's not a true data
that they have used.
They have tried to, even before getting the real information, they have tried to mitigate the process even further, because if they have used what we know that is current exchange rate, it will be higher than that. So for generally what we are talking is, for me, is I'm trying to look at what the budget performance will look like, even with this devaluation that occur, even with the removal of fuel subsidy that occur, is that the president must prioritize spending that will help direct impact on the life of the people. If we have a monocrop economy that we have today, which we monoproduct economy that we have today, where we solely depend on one crude oil as a basic income for the country, and then we have a situation where we need to be able to check our unemployment rate and even the unemployment rate and see how we can better do that. I think there must be a direct policy direction that will be able to have proper impact on the agricultural sector, because if you want to get the shortest way out of this whole problem is agriculture. Agriculture has the shortest gestation period for any investment. So, and if the country has about 39.6 million arable land, why are we not focusing on that? Why are we not investing?
You're not saying enough of that. I mean, one of the things that the president spoke to at the last media chat that he had was about how he was bringing in a lot of tractors into the country. He also spoke to legacy projects which he intends to do, the Badagry to Sokoto highway, the Calabar-Lagos highway, which has caused quite a bit of controversy as well. These are some of the things that he says are the investment opportunities that he's putting in place to justify why our budget is this way.
For me, the president's policy is that they are everywhere and they are nowhere. That's the problem we're having. You talk about policy and bringing tractors and all that to improve our agricultural sector and invest more into it. It was the same president. I don't want more talk and less action. It was the same president who said that he's going to be tilling 500,000 hectares of land yearly or so, or quarterly. And he has not done one square meter. You are talking about Lagos Badagry Expressway, Lagos Calabar Expressway. We have about close to 36,000 federal roads that are not motorable. You can't even drive from here to Abuja from here to Lokoja. You can't drive from 65 kilometers from Enugu to Oka. These are the challenges. I think the government, that's why I'm talking about, putting priority to certain things that will help. Look, from we come to Benue, how can you move? But from now to Benue, you have a very good road. That I traveled to Benue, I saw how beautiful, how sweet, smooth the road was, and it made my journey very comfortable. So if we have roads that are in deplorable conditions, that are not well, that are not helping our people to move and then transport their goods and services, the federal roads that we're already aware of, why are we running into another investment that will take so many years? Look at this West Road, for instance. It has taken 20 years, nothing has been done about it. If the government wake up and say, for the South, for the benefit of the people, this is West Road is 20 years, we are going to put all our energy in this road and get it working. So than trying to create a project, and the problem with our governance system is that people want to do things, initiate project and then end it with them, so that they will say, I started it and ended it. Government is a continuum. You have to be able to understand that whether you do 10,000 of it today and somebody does another 10,000 naira, is all for the betterment of the people, to have a better life for the people. It is not about legacy project for you. It's about legacy project for the benefit of the masses. If it's not affecting the masses, if it's a project that is elitist in nature and is not going to trickle down to help the people to have a better, comfortable life, then there's a problem. I don't even think that if the government want to decongest Abuja today, why are we building new road? People can't even live in the metropolis. People working are living in the suburbs, and the suburbs are not really taken care of. Why are we not doing train station from Niger and from Lokoja and from Nasarawa, so that people can just come in and live there? And these people have very good land that people can even have access to be able to have housing built for themselves.
Now, some people will disagree with you there in terms of what is currently happening in the suburbs of Abuja. Some people will say that there's been plenty of focus. We've been seeing the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory going around and commissioning roads in the suburbs, roads that had hitherto been abandoned, but linking them up. We understand that so many area councils now can be linked up through the back roads that are being done by the Minister of the FCT. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I've seen some of them, but I know there's still a lot of work to be done.
Okay, let's go to Lagos now. I know Ayo has questions for you.
Thank you, Maokwe. And I know that we have little time with Mr. Ame this morning because of a number of other things that need to be discussed. But you are a politician, so there are those who would say, naturally would expect that you would only be criticizing the government. But please speak to us more as the governance, policy, and development analyst that you are. What exactly is missing? You've talked about the fact that it's government after government will only take on a project and terminate it with them. But you also know that just recently, a slew of executive orders in the United States of America by President Trump has terminated quite a number of things that the previous government has done. So, there are those who will say it's neither here nor there. But speak to us about the fact that whether or not this rising debt profile is indeed as dangerous to us as it seems, or as you are presenting it, because there are a number of politicians, even economists in particular that we've spoken to, said that no, this is not totally, we're not totally in the woods, because even the United States of America, even the greatest nations in the world, still owe debt. So is it really as bad as it sounds, or is it that we're not paying attention to the right things?
I think I get your question. Every time we want to compare ourselves to the United States, and you can see that what Trump is trying to do is to make sure that the United States go back to production. What I've said is that people can borrow money. There's no time. Private business, government can borrow money at any time. But what I want, this money or whatever debt that we're incurring for the future generation should be able to have also a benefit on their lives when they also arrive. So I've talked about prioritizing investment as it has to do with our people. I've talked about doing the right thing and looking at how to make sure that those things that stand as obstacle to movement of the people and goods and services within the federal territory called Nigeria is done without creating more shortcut out of it. Look at our budget is our major problem. I've said it, and the National Assembly has a lot of role to play. They have also contributed to the kind of weak budgetary system that we have, because the oversight function that is given to National Assembly is very strong. I know the debt is to GDP is not that Nigeria can shoulder it, but we are saying that whatever we are doing with this, whatever borrowing we go into, whatever resources we generate, we cannot use 16 trillion of our money, about 32% of that resources, to be able to service debt. There was a time during Buhari time that we service a debt with about 90% of the revenue generated. So what we are saying is that, yes, please, can we have the kind of investment like in agriculture? Can we concentrate more on where we have?
But Mr. Ame, you've spoken about agriculture quite a number of times this morning. But the question that anyone will be asking you is, since 1999, the president of the day made it clear that if we do not go back to agriculture, we're in very miry clay. And government after government has sustained the same campaign. But we also know that the federal government doesn't have land. It's the states that, well, maybe except in the FCT, it's the states that have land. And one of the questions that I've repeated over time is the challenge of that collaboration between the federal government and the states, and the tremendous bureaucracy, red tape that has to get in the way. So how much of our debt profile will be addressed if this agricultural revolution we've been talking about for more than 2 decades works as expected? Can you hear me, Mr. May?
I didn't hear the last part of your statement, but the agriculture, like I said, has the shortest gestation period, and their profile will be hugely impacted upon if we have a productive agricultural sector. And we also have another problem. Look at Argentina. When the current administration came in place, they have over $12 billion in debt, $12 billion in debt. They had a very bad economy, but there are other shorter processes to start. First of all, there has to be cost-cutting measures put in place so that we don't have this unnecessary spending that people are using to, siphon our resources without ever delivering anything that is good for our people. We need to have a National Assembly that look at the line items and then look at it from the 2023 budget, 2024 budget, and see how these repeated line items have become woes to the development of our country. Because you cannot continue. The President of America has been sworn in today. We are not seeing the renovation of the White House. We are not seeing budgetary allocation for new vehicles. We are not seeing budgetary allocation for renovation. As we talk in our budget today, we have $4 billion for jetties and helipad in Lagos. We have about $9.4 billion
Mr. May, let's speak to the issues. If we sat down on just talking about,
if we do not cut down the cost of our governance by putting proper resources in
discordant issues. Just a second, Mr. May. If we continue to talk about the discordant issues, the real issues are not going to be addressed. So let's stick to the conversation that we're having. Now, you've said that if we focus on agriculture, we will significantly reduce our debt profile as a nation. And as Madam Munir has said in that conversation that she had with the National Assembly members, that the federal and the state governments are joint owners of this debt and a number of other things that we hope to address with her in time to come. So with that debt profile, it means that the states themselves have quite some questions to answer. Now, we've also talked about the need for states to collaborate with the federal government. What is missing, and how do you think it should be handled in terms of that collaboration so that agriculture can work and we can cut down on our debt profile?
If government can also acquire land, I think the state will be willing to sell. If the state has no capacity and competence to be able to drive this opportunity that the government is putting before them, because all land resides within the authority of the state government. So for us to do this, we need to have a collaboration between the state government.
Does the federal government have to acquire lands from the states before they do the needful, or the federal government should just collaborate or partner or energize the states to do the things that they need to do?
We've done about collaboration before. If you look at our current inflation, about the pressure on our inflation that is 34.2 or 8%, I don't know exactly, but over 34%, about 70% is from food inflation. And food inflation alone is running about 40%. So government must take it as a serious effort in trying to make sure that we reinvent our economic system. We reinvent the way we generate resources. So if you have states that are not interested in agriculture, that because of the federal system that we run, which is a feeding bottle arrangement, that people must come on the 28th or 27th, lodge themselves in the hotel, get allocation, and go back and share the money, pay salaries and just basically pay salary and do nothing. And if you have that kind of situation and you are a president and you are interested in the development of this country, I don't think there's no extent that a president cannot go. When Obama came into office, the General Motors and Co were going underground. He gave them money. There could be private companies. These are private companies, are private entities. But it helps to create jobs and create development for our people. If the federal government knows people who are good with agricultural development, federal government can invest in it, because it is better for our people to live a better life with the kind of resources that come to our country and come to the federal government and put it into proper use than for us to continue to look for state governors, majority of them who are not interested in trying to help their own masses within their own community.
Are there any state governors that are not interested? Because let's not also forget this debt profile which you have talked about. I think it was Madam Oniha who also said that, state governments, all of them put together, own only about 10% of this profile. In other words, the federal government is the one that owns the bulk and the majority, about 90% of the debt that we're talking about here.
I've agreed with all this, but we are looking for a way out.
Yes.
We can't.
Are you looking around and seeing that there are some state governments that are not serious?
There are now. What we have about how many thousand square kilometers do we have in Niger State? Kogi alone, the whole southeast can fit into Kogi, about 20-something thousand square kilometers. So you can't say that they are serious when they are not the basket of food production. Look at what Benue has. Benue has all the varieties of mangroves in the world. And why are we not exporting them? Why are we not creating like what Lagos State has done? Food preservation and storage facility. Why are we not creating them in each of the zone? These are things that could have helped our country. If you go to Benue today, these oranges and mango are wasting away. We must be able to, see, when you want to build a society, when Margaret Thatcher came into office in England, he saw that the football was going to be, he invested money into it, and today we Nigerians are busy watching it. So we need to have a kind of a direct interest in what we want to achieve. We cannot have an economy that people can drive. By 2000, people can buy Tokombo cars. By the 80s, 70s, people are buying brand new cars. Now people are buying reused cars in this country. The economic system is buying and killing the middle class. If you go to communities where people are supposed to go to farm, people can't go to farm because they are being kidnapped. So government has a responsibility to provide security. To make sure that our farmlands are safe and our ungoverned spaces are no longer ungoverned. And they have a lot of investment in that, whether they are using technology or they are using manpower, boot on ground. It will also help to make sure that between Benue, Kogi and Niger, that we try to do something urgently to put our unemployed youth to work. We have a very energetic youth who, if you give them opportunity, they will work in farms, they will be able to generate resources for themselves. It's all about getting well paid. If people are well paid, people don't care where they work. So government cannot just wait that every time we have the only employment we have. Look at the Nigerian Labour Ministry, saying they have no statistics on the unemployment data available. So how do you develop a country without data? How do you make policy without data?
A lot of questions to ask, but your passion is undeniable. We have to thank you so much for your contributions, Mr. Peter Ame. He's the National Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll take a break at this point, and we'll be back shortly to discuss development. And this time around, we're taking it to the northwest of the country. Please stay with us.